Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of the Superintendent Spotlight. Today, we're going to focus on the Hingham Public Schools Food Service program. We're very happy to report that we have a program that's very successful, growing all the time, and you're going to hear about some of that today. So, as usual, I have three very knowledgeable guests. I'll introduce them, and then we'll be back with conversations. So, first I have, at the end of the table to my left, Kim Smith. Kim is the director of the food service program for Hingham, and you've been here how long, Kim?
This is my 5th year.
Starting your 5th year. Great. And next to Kim is Debbie Steller. Dr. Steller is the principal of the Foster Elementary School, and one of the reasons that we have someone from Foster is they've had some tremendous participation growth this year, and we'll talk a bit about how that has come about. And then next to Debbie is David Reardon, and Mr. Reardon is an assistant principal at Hingham Middle School. Of course, this year we opened a brand new building there and all kinds of new routines and new spaces for the kitchen and the cafeteria. So we'll talk a bit about that. We will be showing a PowerPoint as part of this presentation and commenting on that. But before we do that, just as some background, we participate in the federal school lunch program. And that's a program that does not impact our budget in that there is a revolving account. So all of the revenues that come to that program go into the revolving account, and then those dollars are used to buy the food and pay the staff and pay Kim and do whatever it is we need to do to serve lunch to the number of kids we have on a daily basis. So it's a federal program, and therefore it's not something you would ever see in the budget. Nevertheless, there is a budget for the program. There is reimbursement that comes depending upon the number of children who would be eligible for free or reduced lunch, and Kim may talk a little bit about that earlier. In Hingham, we don't have a large number, about 4.5%?
Actually, it's 6.
6% overall.
Yeah.
Okay, and that probably varies by the level of students.
Yeah, it fluctuates usually anywhere from as low as 5 to as many as 7%.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to ask Kim to give us some additional information about the program, and then we're going to get into looking at the PowerPoint and hearing some of the good news that Kim has to share today. So can you tell us a little bit more, because it's a federal program, heavily regulated in terms of nutritional guidelines and the participation. So can you talk a little bit more about what the federal program requires of you?
So the federal program requires that I follow standards of nutrition, and that is on all levels. It includes calories, sodium, fat, as well as with the new regulations that have received a lot of publicity. We are specifically required to offer certain types of vegetables every week. So we need to offer a dark orange, a dark green, a legume, and a starchy. So that's your variety. You are required to offer those vegetables, but you can certainly offer other vegetables in addition to that. And it has to be at least a half cup serving of each. In order to put in for a reimbursed meal, which depending on the whether they're free, reduced, or a paid student would depend on what we would receive back from the government. When they get to the register, they have to have 3 items of the 5 components required for school lunch. And out of those 5, out of the 3 that they were required to have on the tray, 1 must be a fruit or a vegetable. The 5 components of school lunch are milk, protein, grain, fruit, and vegetable. So as a federally regulated program, we have to offer all 5. The children do not need to take all 5, but they must take at least 3. And out of the 3, 1 must be either a serving of a fruit or a vegetable in order to put in for a reimbursable meal. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're following the guidelines, pretty much everything else falls into place. The calories, the fat, the salt in the whole grain has been a hot topic. We are required to offer every grain that we offer must meet 51% of a whole grain. That was as of last year. The year before, menu-wise, we had to be at least 51% of the grain that we offered had to be whole grain. So let's say I offered pasta on the menu once a month. That could be a white pasta because everything else that I served on my menu that was a grain would be a whole grain, and then it would fall in line. There are some items, even in this day and age, I think as adults, we all try to eat healthier and eat right. And we try to pass that down to our kids. But it's also food and eating is a cultural thing. And there are some things that just the kids are having a hard time accepting. Okay. We don't eat beans, for instance, culturally on a regular basis. I think we eat more beans now than we did maybe 10 years ago. And, you know, whole grain is also becoming more and more prevalent out there, I think, as a regular standard of nutrition versus the white. But then you get into your lower economic regions, and let's face it, a loaf of white bread is 99 cents in the grocery store, and if you buy a loaf of whole grain bread, it's $2.39. So there's a big price difference. Okay. So, you know, there is a lot of things that you might have on your school lunch menu that you can't get out on the regular market. For instance, you know, all of our pizza is a whole grain crust. Most people are not buying whole grain crust pizza at home, or, you know, you don't really see whole grain crusted pizza in the grocery store if you were to buy a frozen pizza. You know, same with chicken nuggets. So that is something, you know, kids will come home and they may say, you know, well, it tastes different than what I get at home. Well, yeah, it is, because it's different. It's not the same.
Although they apparently adjust, because
they're
from what I
getting better
hear,
about
pizza
it.
is a pretty popular.
Pizza's
regardless.
very popular, and chicken nuggets are always very popular, and brunch for lunch. Even, you know, we do chicken nuggets every first day back to school at the elementary level, and the younger kids definitely do better when they know that when they come back to school, they know that they're going to get their chicken nuggets. And they know that on Wednesdays is brunch for lunch day. And they know that on Fridays it's pizza day. They do really well with that. And we've kept the Pizza Fridays throughout all of the schools at every level. But when I offer chicken nuggets at the middle school and the high school, it's a big seller for us, even still. You know, they still enjoy their chicken nuggets. Okay.
So we talked a little bit about the change in the federal guidelines, and certainly a couple of years ago when the change initially came in, all districts were concerned about some loss of participation because of the amounts and the focus on the fruits and vegetables and all of that. But they have eased up, and you mentioned that in those guidelines, so that we can find a better balance between serving them, you know, what they want to eat and what we think they should eat.
Right.
So
it's not nutrition until they consume it. So initially, they had really restricted the amount. They had put a ceiling on the amount of protein and the amount of grains that we could serve. And that dramatically reduced, you know, the amount of fruits and vegetables that would be on the tray would fill up more, which is ideally what you want. But that's not how we eat. We tend to eat, you know, heavy on the grains and the protein, and it was way too much change all at once.
right.
They have eased up on those, and there is no longer a cap on the amount of protein and the amount of grains that we can serve per lunch. And we are still offering all the fruits and the vegetables that we're supposed to at any time. Any student can find a piece of fresh fruit in any of our schools, any of the cafeterias at any time.
Okay. So we're going to go to the PowerPoint because it has some good news, and we always want to get to good news. So we often have special events. I'm assuming that that's what this first slide is about, some sort of a special activity. It says fresh there, and we're juggling with fresh food, so Kim just
Well, I
mentioned
actually
that's
really just kind of stole this.
You stole that one. Okay, well, we'll move on then, since we're looking for
But
the...
it's, the food service, it is a juggling act about, giving the kids what they want plus what they need, and having it work operationally, and
And be appealing visually.
feeling
and
visually.
served by friendly people and all those things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, what's happened this year?
So we had the new school, we had the new middle school, which was very exciting for us. With that came, a new layout that we'd never had before, and new equipment. And it was, it was exciting, and it just really just took off.
Right.
We had a new program with the USDA called DoD Fresh. DoD is the Department of Defense. So the USDA partnered with the Department of Defense, and we were able to piggyback on their fresh produce program and able to spend money that is allotted to districts to spend on foods, USDA foods, and we were able to take some of that money and spend it on fresh produce. Big win for us.
And the whole district has gone to Google, Google
The whole
Environment.
district is on Google, and let me tell you, my staff is using the Google Drive, and these are individuals. Some of them had never used email before, so this was a huge thing. Google Drive's been a great tool for us, communicative-wise. It's streamlined a lot of that stuff and they're now getting to the point where they're like at the end of the year, they would look at other orders and say, oh, you know what, I have an extra case of paper plates. You don't need to order those, that kind of thing. So it was great, and our inventories are the lowest that they've ever been since I've been here. We did have a mandatory review by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which couldn't have been better timing for me. It gave me a few years to kind of find my way and so on and so forth. And we are very much in regulations. Of course, we're not perfect, so there were a few things that came back, but we've made those corrections. So I think we're fully compliant with what is required of us by the USDA.
We're going to have some individual slides about the participation and revenues, so.
Yeah.
And tell us about better communications.
And that all really kind of goes to the technology with the email and the Google Drive. We're just able to communicate faster and more adequately amongst our schools. So it's not so much that Foster Elementary is all by herself over there and she's going to make it happen with between those four walls. She knows she now has the support of the entire district.
And we should say that Kim's office is here in this building, and her clerical support person is here as well in this building. So it's communicating out and then back from the schools and even among the schools.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a food service team. You're the person in charge. So you mentioned before that there some new learning needed to go on relative to technology. That's great to hear. And I would think that those folks who were reluctant press at first have learned a lot and perhaps are pretty proud of what they now can do.
They're very proud. And what's funny is now there's peer-on-peer teaching going on, so they're not always just coming to me. They'll go to, somebody may contact Patty, the manager over at Foster, because she's really taken to a lot of the tools that I've given her, and she's having huge success, and they want to learn from their peers. So I think that's,
And that tends to be true throughout the district with respect to technology, that we have a lot of teachers that learn as much from their peers, if not more in some areas, than they do from the training that we provide. So the DoD Fresh, I think you talked about that you could spend your entitlement money on that. And where do we go to get fresh produce during the winter months?
Well, yeah, I think every person who is head of a household and does the grocery shopping knows that once we get into our winter months, which is when we go to school, is when the produce prices come up because we can't get it locally.
Yes.
So there is the company who won the bid is out of Rhode Island. It's all the ordering is done online, but and what I did is I waited to spend those dollars until we got into our deeper winter months, January, February, and even in March. So I was able to basically I spent $15,000 in fresh produce that was allotted to us by the government that I didn't have to take out of
That's great.
food service budget money.
So timing, as with many things, timing is everything.
Yeah.
More money towards the fresh things for next year is good. And I note in the slide it talks about serving baked potatoes, fresh green beans, and broccoli, and some strawberries. And I know also in several of the buildings, if not all of them, you serve some things that came from the school gardens that we have in most of the schools. And of course, that would be a hit with the
At the elementary levels, we do, in a couple of the schools, they do garlic. So we'll do like garlic bread. And then I think Plymouth River usually does potatoes. And then what's great at the high school is now we have the greenhouse. And we were actually able to do a whole greenhouse meal. And they grew me some fresh basil and some garlic. And we made a pesto. And the kids had a choice of either pesto or red sauce if they wanted. But then the salad were all greens that were grown in the garden, and it was nice. It was interesting. It was mustard greens, which are nice
Ale,
and spicy, and we had a lot romaine, and all the basil came from the garden. So it was fun.
very popular, and integrating the different disciplines all together with the support services like food services. So here's an interesting lunch that I don't think I saw when I was in school. Turkey sushi bites at the elementary level. Not really sushi, but
really
looking
sushi.
like sushi. Was that a popular?
You know what? It was the first time, and the younger kids, it takes usually a few times for us to do it in order for them to take it. But those who took it really enjoyed it. And I think it's fun. It's it was a great spin, and they my team really they've really gotten them into taking pictures and sending them to me. Whoops. And then this is the spicy chicken sliders. This is at the would be at the middle school. And you'll note that we have apple chips. That's a brand new product that we brought in at the end of the last year. They're freeze-dried apples, and the only ingredient in them is apples.
Is apple.
So it's a nice replacement for a potato chip because it still gives you that crunch, but you're getting a fruit.
So the high school, of course, is our biggest school, and I know that there we're still working to get the participation up and the revenue up, and that's an ongoing thing. One of the concerns that we have at the high school is that our enrollment there is growing, and with something like a 22-minute lunch, getting kids through the line, if we want them to participate in the school lunch program as opposed to bringing their lunch, needs to be sped up a bit. So we're actually working on a project to try to expand the serving areas to add another line, and so that is beginning work and talking about that and getting some prices and design done for that. But we also had some long-term absences that impacted, our serving and our issues there. Talk about the snack room, the high school snack room.
So the high school snack room, basically it was a separate line all on its own. Where kids could get snacks and water and so on and so forth. When a year after I got here at the middle school, we had a similar snack room set up, and I closed it and started then offering on a gradual basis, offering more and more items that the kids could actually purchase on the line. And what I found was that helped us to actually increase our participation because kids were actually having to come into the line and see what we have.
It's offered, yeah.
So this year, given that we're having some staffing issues at the high school, it made sense for us to close that room and
Consolidate.
And the kids can still get all their pretty much all the same snacks. They just have to come in through the line to get it. And what that has done is it's opened up, oh, what's that? You know, they see the lunch and they didn't realize they could get this. So you get that foot traffic, which
Right.
basic business
Yeah.
marketing.
So,
This is the entrance into the deli bar or the a la carte entrance, which is also like a second choice meal for the kids.
okay,
Deli bar is very popular, and this is where we tend to get a lot of bottlenecking because they're ordering their sandwiches and their sandwiches are being made to
at the
order.
time, right.
So that obviously takes a little bit of time. So kids are waiting in line to order their sandwich, and in the same line, the kids who are wanting to get a cheeseburger or a chicken sandwich or whatever other types of second choice items that we might have available for them that day, they may decide that they're going to skip it.
Right, right. So that issue with the lines is a primary thing particularly at the high school with the number of kids that we have there, although middle school has nearly the same number of students. So we do have an a la carte opportunity, and this is it with the second choice at the high school. Water is always available to kids, so certainly milk, but also water. And then there's the hot lunch line, and we're looking to have another line. And that's the snack area, hot lunch setup. Now, middle school, huge success. Now, we define huge success perhaps differently than parents and kids do. For us, huge success is participation up and expenses down and revenue up, obviously. And therefore the reimbursements are also up. So for this year was the most profitable school. Now we do have to acknowledge that this was our biggest enrollment too at the middle school because we brought in 388 sixth graders in September coming out of the elementary school, and we were exiting a smaller number of eighth graders to go to the high school. So obviously you'd expect some growth anyway, but we think there are other reasons for that. So I'm going to ask David what he thinks contributed to this increase in the participation. Now I'll have Kim comment on that.
Well, certainly a lot of the work that Kim has done over the last 5 years has contributed to the increased participation. The brand new school with the beautiful facilities as well certainly has helped quite a bit. And one thing we've seen with the increased participation, we're not getting our lines bogging down. And thinking about it, one thing I think that helps there is that our cashiers are outside of the service line. They're actually, you'll get your food and then you move outside of the service line into the physical cafeteria, just 1 or 2 steps. Mm-hmm. And that's where the cashiers are. It creates more space and efficiency and kind of a fluid movement through there. Mm-hmm. Any good change is going to take 2 or 3 years. So you mentioned the snack bar being closed, and I hadn't thought about that, but it's only been a few short years. But the kids we have now either don't miss it or never knew that it existed at the middle school level. And the choices that you've used to replace what was offered there are so much better nutritionally, and as you said, brings them into the hot lunch area, the a la carte area. Really so many things. The staff is doing a great job, and I would say that the greatest things for the improved success is the presentation, the color, the portions, the expanded choices that they have. Whereas kids, I think, formerly would look at the calendar, the menu, say, oh, I don't like that, so I'm not going near the line. Whereas I think the attitude now is, I'm going to buy lunch today. If I don't like what's on the menu, there'll be something else that I like. And really are there a lot of much better choices. And the presentation is not only the new school, but the efforts that the faculty is making to use the the coolers and the serving line. That's where the success is coming from.
Right. And we should say that the cafeteria is crowded, each one of the lunches, because we have we opened that building with 1,022 students. Now, that was anticipated. It wasn't as if these kids came from nowhere. We
Right.
knew that we were opening at the peak design capacity, which was determined by the school building reimbursement program. So we knew that was going to happen, but not easy to get that number of youngsters in and out of the cafeteria. And one of the concerns we have at the moment actually is around trying to expand our recycling and our ultimately the composting program there. But there's a challenge because once the bell rings, they all are exiting at the same time. And so, to train youngsters to do the right thing with their food in a really limited time is going to be a challenge there, and we'll continue to work on that. Kim, is there something about the middle school that you wanted to comment on? We're seeing these slides with
Well, I have to say, I think also one of the huge things time-wise for the kids when they come through that line has been that more and more families are making sure that their children have money on their account.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not there's less cash. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of the student punching in their PIN number, their account pops up, the cashier punches it in, takes it right out of the account, and they move on. So there's less money handling
and changing
and
and that's true in all of our buildings. We have that.
It is. It has it's still not as big at the high school. We still have more cash at the high school than we do at the younger levels. But my theory is that as these students move up the grades, that we'll see that.
Because some of the cash at the high school may be their allowance money or whatever that they're going to use to buy a second lunch or one of the snacks or whatever. So,
right.
And that they're likely not going to want to put on any account. They want that in their pocket. So it's another challenge that we need to overcome. Good news. Certainly good news. The high school next year will be a big year also at the high school because at the middle school because we have another large class coming from 5th grade into 6th grade and a smaller class going out at the 8th. So we thought this year was our peak middle school enrollment year. Next year we're looking at 1,100 students at the middle school. So, but also that's for the school lunch program potential for growth.
Do you think that's because we have the new school that more students have come back?
No, these are kids that have been in our system
Okay.
for a while. Now, has the fact we have a new school there and also a relatively new e-school, have those two things brought more families to town? We do believe that's true, and there's some statistical research that says within the first 3 or so years of opening a brand new building, often there is an increase in enrollment there. So moving on to the elementary, because the big change for the elementary in the coming year is that full-day kindergarten means there's another potential area of growth, but also presenting lots of challenges with 5-year-olds who are going to perhaps take a little longer to get through lines and a little more training for them. But huge success. The revenues are up, participation at over 6%, so that's good because our average was 6%, so getting up over that is a good thing. We had a new manager in place last year and with a real can-do kind of attitude. The doors, tell the story about the doors, Debbie, opening the doors.
Well, when those things happen, you just don't realize the impact. Well, the lights, we lost all of our power.
Mm-hmm.
And so, excuse me, so we were still serving because the food had been prepared and it was still warm enough, but we had a temporary loss of power. And there have always been doors there, but we could see in the cafeteria, but they couldn't see clearly in the kitchen. So we just opened those doors, and so we're all standing there and we're saying, and why haven't we opened these before? Because then everybody gets to see and can get the smells of what's happening in the kitchen.
Right.
And so after that, the doors have just stayed open, and it has just been a wonderful expansion of the whole space.
And I think there be light moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Occurred. So here is the view that the students now see with the
Through
doors
the doors
of
open,
everything that's
absolutely, yeah.
going on there. And a typical kind of setup. And this would be typical of the other elementaries as well, Kim, would it not?
Yes.
And I think Dave made a good point about how things look, you know, the attractive displays, particularly of things like fruits and vegetables, make a big difference. So, because it is another school, this is a Plymouth River line set up. I did want to say that at the East School, this year we did have the composting program, and that went very well. Took a lot of training, but we also have special events sometimes at the elementary school. So this was a tailgate party. When did you do this, Kim?
Right around Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
The idea came from Melissa Smith over at Plymouth River, and she's the vice principal over there. And she sent me an email. She said, "What do you think?" And I said, "You know what? Let me think about how we can get this done." And you know, and all of my teams at the elementary were excited to do it, and we kind of made some changes and juggled things around, and we had a tailgate party. We pulled that off in a couple of weeks. So it
We've
all in
done
all,
World Series things, and we've done kind of
yep. And
Mexican.
we do Halloween. We do special meals. We do Kids' Choice at the
I was
elementary.
just going to make sure we shared that piece, because I think that is our most favorite at Foster School, is that they get to choose from several items on what they're going to serve the next month for a menu, and they select it, and they really do enjoy, and everyone gets to vote, not necessarily if you have lunch or not, but all the students vote, and that seems to be one of their favorite days as well.
Choice is always a good thing with children, and
Well-
voting is another good thing that they like to do. So let's talk about the kindergartens. So we have kindergarten coming in, which means we have to have another. In some of the buildings, it will be an additional lunch just for kindergarten. In other buildings, I think the principals are trying to integrate into the lunches they have. Depends upon the numbers in each class. So what do you think are going to be the major issues, Debbie, about
Well,
kindergarten?
We've been very fortunate because we've had the KIA kindergarten at Foster, and those children have had lunch
Okay,
with
so
us.
you've got some experience
So
with
we've
that.
had some experiences with children at that age. I think that one of the things that when we talk about bringing children from having lunch at home or in their very small environments is coming to the cafeteria. And so there are three things that I see that we will work with our children on. Is one, coming into a very large space and eating with other children. And secondly, that going through the line and all the choices. And how to make choices, and probably as we move through, and of course at Foster and all the elementary schools, children have three choices, along with samples and a number of other items to engage children in exploring a variety of vegetables, fruits.
So there'd be a
and
lot
other
of
foods.
learning that needs to happen in the classroom, perhaps even before they get to.
And a lot of
The lunchroom.
practice, and we'll have some, the third piece is, and this is true for our children until they leave us really at 5th grade, is the balance of visiting and eating, you know, because there's a time frame, you know, most of us when we dine together as a family or wherever we might be, our time is really not limited.
Right.
And we have only so many minutes for lunch. And so getting them into a routine of talking and visiting with friends, but eating at the same time, so there's not a lot of waste.
And we've made a lot of comments about the short lunch period, and, you know, I'm sure there are parents and others out there saying, well, why don't you just make it longer? And I really need to point out that in addition to having to attend school for 180 days, children have, and we have, the requirement of providing instruction for, at the elementary level, 900 hours. And that's instructional hours. And that doesn't count lunch or passing time, or the what some people might remember as the homeroom kinds of activities. So we can only count actual instructional hours, and therefore, if we want to increase the lunchtime, we pretty much would have to increase the length of the school day, because otherwise we wouldn't make the number of hours. And at the secondary level, that the day is longer anyway at the secondary level. But secondary level, it's 990 hours of instruction. So while it seems to be a simple thought that you just make the lunch period 10 minutes longer, which everyone would like, you certainly would take the pressure off you, Kim, in terms of rushing, and the pressure off the kids in terms of eating, and the parents in preparing things that kids then don't eat and throw away. So that's an important point. So from your perspective, Kim, in terms of the kindergarten, have you and your managers given any thought to what might be different?
As Dr. Steller has pointed out, we have been fortunate that the KIA has been participating in lunch for at least the last 3 years. So, we have some experience. These are the things that I see, it's new for them, brand new. They've never had to do anything like this before, so it can be a little scary for them. Then on the other hand, if they have older siblings that participate in lunch, they get excited because they'll get to get lunch just like,
Right.
their older brother or sister. And it's just, the process. But once they get in there and they they learn the system and they tend to be our best customers because they know they do very good with structure, and, they know they got to come in, they got to, maybe they get their milk, they get their meal, they know their number better than anybody, and they love being able to push in their number on that pin pad. So there's a learning curve, and they in the beginning need a little more time to learn how to do it.
And certainly, I know at East last year when we were looking at the recycling piece of it, that we had a lot of parent volunteers, and in the beginning, kids needed a lot of extra actual physical help being there, help in making choices and all of that. So we are fortunate in this town that there's a ready group out there that we, particularly at the younger levels, secondary level, they don't so much want their parents to be in the building, let alone in the cafeteria during their social time. So we talked about the pizza being a popular option, and chicken nuggets, obviously. At middle school level, Dave, what is the most popular
I
day
would say our
for
most
lunch?
popular is calzones, which have been served for the past few years. They're made right on site, and they're absolutely delicious. Many of the faculty will have them as well. Buffalo chicken is a favorite. Buffalo chicken calzone. Kids mark their agenda books when calzones are being served. They know when it's calzone day.
Yeah, we have a hard time getting them to mark their agenda books for the homework they're supposed to be
Well,
doing. But
I guess the
priorities
calzones
are-
take a priority. And this past year, the chicken sliders were very, very successful. I think we saw
We
an
saw
image
those,
of
yes.
that on the PowerPoint. And fruit smoothies were introduced, strawberry and blueberry, which are just frozen fruit and yogurt, and they're presented in a great way, and the kids absolutely love them. That's one thing that they've learned, that when you get a fruit smoothie, you have to stick with it, because it is difficult to eat or drink that fruit smoothie within the 26-minute
minutes
lunch.
that you have.
It's
Otherwise-
16 ounces.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
it's
wow.
large, and
Good.
they do enjoy them. They taste great, and other than that, the kids are pretty good about time at the middle school level. But fruit smoothies, calzone, chicken sliders,
Yeah,
easily the
absolutely.
3 favorites, along with pizza, of course.
Debbie, what would you say at the elementary?
course,
I
pizza-
think your building is probably typical in terms of the
Pizza
choices.
and chicken nuggets, absolutely. But I think one of the things that we have really been very fortunate is that our nutrition team, Patty Carson, Debbie Bennett, and Miss Standish, they're always behind the line with our young children, saying, "Oh, would you like to try this?" Or, "I made this bean dip, and I think you just really might like it. I'll bet you've had hummus at home, and maybe you just want to try one." And so they're very good about encouraging children as they go through the line to sample and to give something a try.
Right.
And they also are very good about matching things. For instance, if they're little chips, and on occasion there's a small little bag of chips that they put together in a little baggie, but in order to get the little chips, you have to select a particular dip that goes with it. So there's a lot of balance in that. I usually dine, and I like to say dine, not that everyone else calls the lunchroom going out for dinner, but I dine most of the time with the children, and I see them really engaged in in making their selections. And, you know, we would like to have no really food that is wasted. But part of that is just when you go out to dinner, you can sometimes take it home. But if you're having conversation and you're eating and it's time to go, there are leftovers. But I think, again, we look forward to even extending the recycling that we do to a more extensive
And that
composting.
is our goal, to eventually expand that program to, right now it's at the high school and east.
Right.
And we're looking for a grant. We haven't heard about our application yet that will allow us to extend that effort throughout time.
And I believe the other elementary schools, we do some composting.
Oh,
and
yes,
we do the trays.
Right, we do
and,
recycling, but
but
the
we-
actual food separation.
Food separation, we
waste
just-
separation,
yes.
we haven't done, so.
But we look forward to being able to participate in that at some
Right,
time.
right. So we've talked about success, overall, a year well into the black. And I do want to say that even when we've had years where we didn't do as well as we liked, the school budget has never had to support the program because for many years there was a surplus. And so that it's taken us a while to get back now to generating the surplus and not simply using a surplus that had once existed. But that money will go to good use. For example, we're looking at that the high school, and we can use some of that kind of surplus. But we talked about the surplus and a good year, and so da-da-da-da-da-da, the drum roll, so.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I really am excited about this coming school year because I want
What's the
to,
number? I want you to tell, we haven't talked about what the number was.
the number for
We ended the year with a surplus of
$63,000.
big
Wow.
success and big turnaround.
That's
And
huge.
a
I
lot
get
of credit to
goosebumps.
Kim and certainly also to her.
And
her
district-wide, we increased participation to over 2%, which brought us to that 30% mark, which is kind of the magic number that John, the business manager, and I were looking at that we needed to hit in order to be profitable. And I am just really excited about increasing that number and really having huge success and really being able to impact the children in Hingham in regards to their nutrition, because I know there's a lot of talk about waste and so on and so forth, but ultimately we are providing children with a model of what good nutrition is supposed to look like. And it might not come, it might be 10 years from now, but at some point they're going to realize this is how I'm supposed to eat, and they'll get back
And
to
we're
it.
doing it at an earlier age this year, a whole year younger. They will be able to provide that information, so that's terrific. We should also say that Debbie talked a bit about the importance of the staff being welcoming of children and getting them to try things that actually when we negotiated with our food services unit this year, as part of the negotiation, there was a built-in incentive for increased participation. There was some financial reward for that. And in this very first year, even though we didn't finish the negotiations till the year had already begun, in this very first year, 4 of the 6 schools, the staff there benefited. Not large amounts of money, but incentives, particularly monetary ones, are often important.
And
so,
out of the 4, 3 of them received the max that they could receive.
right, so that's terrific.
Yeah.
So is there anything else any one of the 3 of you would like to add, a topic that we haven't kind of touched upon?
No, not entirely.
Well, I would like to just make a general comment that it really makes a difference because Kim is there in our school frequently. Sometimes she's an additional person on the line. Sometimes she's checking what we have, how the children are responding to our presentation that has been provided. And we want to say thank you, not only for you, but for the warmer that we received this last year.
Okay.
Now, that may not be a big thing to a lot of people, but we received a new warmer, high quality, and it made a huge difference when everything is served because it's hot, but it's fresh. And I never realized the difference that a warmer could make, and we want to say thank you because that makes a difference because when children go through the line and the food is hot and it's fresh and the milk is cold and the fruits are crispy, all of those things, for them, they want to come back and try those again. So we want to say thank you for that warmer.
We did recycle some of the equipment we had at the middle school, because the middle school, the kitchen equipment is all brand new. But having a surplus, a revenue surplus each year, will allow us to better keep up with the new needs that we have, whether it's a original refrigeration unit at the high school or whatever. Having that surplus is important to provide new equipment and new facilities as we move
I
forward.
think most importantly in regards to that is, the behind the scenes things that people don't see is there's now a plan in place. There's regular maintenance being taken place twice a year on all the equipment in all the kitchens. And, there's a plan in place in order to start replacing older equipment. Unfortunately, we all have a lifespan, and that includes ovens.
And sometimes there are things that just fail,
Yeah.
as they do in our homes. But,
Yes.
but
So-
having the plan is important.
Yeah, having the plan in place that, if something goes, we have a plan to have it replaced.
Right. Dave, any last comments?
I'll just
from you?
echo what Dr. Stella said, that Kim Smith has done a great job. And what I've seen over the last 5 years is that the changes being made aren't, haphazard or whimsical. They're good changes, and they're lasting changes. And the result is that gradually and even, at an even quicker pace, we have a much better program at the middle school. And clearly that's happening district-wide. So thank you.
And thank you all for coming today. And I would say to the audience, thank you for joining in. We hope it's given you some insight into a program that, for those of you who haven't been in schools for a long while, might not even imagine is going on in our school cafeterias today. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being part of the
Thank you.
program.